You got into HR because you thought it was about people. You believed in words like fairness, communication, trust. You read about how HR professionals shaped company culture, resolved conflict, stood up for what was right. You thought you'd be the person people came to when they were treated unfairly, the one who could fix things, help people breathe easier. Your friends said, "You're perfect for it, you're calm, you listen, you care." And maybe that's what doomed you. Because on your first day, you sat through a 2-hour compliance training and realized this isn't about people. It's about covering the company's ass. You sat at your desk learning how to document complaints so they don't become lawsuits, how to conduct neutral investigations that almost never end in actual change. You read policies that sounded progressive but were built with loopholes you could drive a tank through. And before you could even figure out how to print your ID badge, someone from IT looked at your nameplate and muttered, "Great, another narc." That's when it hit you. Nobody wants to talk to HR. You're not the therapist. You're not the fixer. You're the enforcer, the firewall, the polite face of corporate control. You got your first complaint file within the week. A woman reported her supervisor for calling her sweetheart in meetings. You followed the process, filed the paperwork, did the interviews. The supervisor denied it. She didn't have proof, no recordings, no witnesses. When you brought it to leadership, they said, "We'll keep an eye on it." That was it. A week later, she was reassigned to a new team. Lateral move, no raise, no warning. And the whisper started, "Don't go to HR unless you want your career ruined." You felt sick. You wanted to fix it. But no one told you what fixing looked like when both sides were watching you like a hawk. You're expected to be a safe space and a surveillance system at the same time. You started noticing it everywhere. People lowering their voices when you walked past. Managers smiling too wide in your presence. Employees freezing when they saw your name on a calendar invite. You became a symbol of either punishment or false hope. And yet, you kept showing up because you wanted to do it right. You believed if you just followed the process better, worded your reports more clearly, explained the policy more humanely, maybe it would matter. But the process was never built for people. It was built for plausible deniability. And soon, your inbox became a graveyard of half-addressed problems. Someone claims their coworker touched them inappropriately. No cameras in that hallway. Someone says their manager screams at them. No one else will confirm it. Someone confesses they're depressed and burnt out. You send them the EAP number and a PDF about wellness. It feels like putting Band-Aids on bullet holes. And through it all, you smile. You keep your tone neutral. You document. You follow up. You say, "Thank you for coming forward." But more and more, you see it in their eyes. They know you can't really do anything. Not without making it worse for them. And deep down, you know it too. Still, you tell yourself, maybe next case will be different. Because you didn't get into HR to be the enemy. You just didn't realize you were being trained to become it. It gets heavier quicker than you thought. You learn that most people don't come to HR until they're desperate. And desperate people are complicated. Some are angry, some are terrified, some are broken, some lie. Most of them just want someone to listen, and maybe to do something, anything. But doing something? That's where it all falls apart. Because you're not a therapist and you're not law enforcement. You're a policy translator, a neutral party, a quiet note taker. You're supposed to handle every situation with professional discretion, which often means saying just enough to sound helpful without committing to anything real. So every meeting becomes a balancing act. You sit across from someone crying about a hostile work environment, and all you can offer is a folder, a form, and a forced smile. You document everything, you loop in legal, you ask the same questions 5 different ways, just to make sure the company is protected. Not the person, the company. You start noticing how HR is weaponized. Managers will CC you just to scare people. Looping in HR, they say, like you're a bat signal for intimidation. Employees will use your name in arguments. "I'll go to HR if you don't," as if you're a threat, not a safeguard. You're not trusted, you're used. And in return, everyone assumes you've chosen a side. Employees think you protect management, managers think you're soft. Leadership wants you to cut costs, enforce culture, handle terminations, monitor morale, and smile through it all like it's just another team-building exercise. You spend your days in gray zones. A manager makes offhand sexist remarks, but he doesn't mean it that way. An employee is caught sleeping at their desk, but it turns out her husband is in chemo and she's raising 2 kids alone. A rising star quits suddenly, and in the exit interview, she tells you her director bullied her for months. You write it all down, but nothing changes. Because nothing can change. Not if it risks the company's image or bottom line. You stop speaking in clear terms. You start saying things like, "We'll look into it, we appreciate your feedback," Well, handle it internally. You learn how to say no without saying no, how to deny accountability with polished language, how to protect yourself from the very people you're supposed to protect. And behind closed doors, it gets worse. You're in the meetings where layoffs are planned months in advance. You know who's going to lose their job before they do. You see spreadsheets with names and performance ratings next to salary figures like it's a game of who's worth keeping. And then you're the one who has to walk them out. Smile gently. Use phrases like difficult decision and realignment. You shake their hand on the way out, knowing they'll probably never trust a company again. You used to believe in people, in process, in fairness. Now you believe in protocols, because that's all you have left. And every once in a while, someone still walks into your office hopeful. They think you're the one who'll make it right. They look you in the eye and say, "I just want to be heard." And in that moment, you remember what it felt like to believe you could actually help. But then you open the file and return to the role. By now you've stopped pretending. You know what HR really is. It's not a moral compass, it's a liability shield. A public-facing firewall designed to keep the company legally clean and reputationally spotless. Your job is to mitigate exposure. That's what the director called it in your last performance review. Not protect employees, not ensure justice, mitigate exposure. You've become fluent in HR speak. Culturally misaligned. Not a strategic fit. We encourage you to explore other opportunities. Each phrase is a blade wrapped in cotton. You don't speak plainly anymore. You speak an exit strategy. It's not even that you don't care, it's that caring has no place in the org chart. You used to fight for things. Fair pay, inclusion, work-life balance. Now you sit in the same meetings where those values get trimmed for budgetary efficiency. And you nod along, not because you agree, but because disagreeing just makes you the next restructure. You've become good at staying silent. You watch leadership tout mental health awareness in all hands calls, then roll their eyes when someone uses their PTO for burnout. You roll out diversity initiatives that have no budget, no teeth, and no real impact, but they look good on LinkedIn. And when someone reports something real, harassment, discrimination, retaliation, you already know the outcome before the investigation begins. You'll interview both sides. You'll collect written statements. You'll review policies. And then, most likely, you'll find no conclusive evidence of misconduct. Because unless there's video, audio, or a smoking gun, no one's rocking the boat over feelings. You start to realize HR doesn't fix toxic workplaces. It manages them. And when things finally go public, Glassdoor posts, anonymous tips, maybe even a lawsuit, you're the one expected to have already known, to have prevented it, to have done something. But you did. You filled out the forms, you had the meetings. You just weren't allowed to act on any of it. Now your wins come in smaller, quieter forms. Convincing leadership to let a pregnant employee keep her role, getting a modest severance for a layoff victim, creating a paper trail strong enough to stop a bully with power. It's not justice, but it's something. Still, the toll adds up. You've become numb to firings. You barely blink when someone cries. You draft terminations in the same breath you plan the holiday party. And when a good employee quits, citing everything you already knew but couldn't fix, you just close the exit file and move on. You started in HR because you wanted to help people navigate their work lives with dignity. Now you spend most of your energy helping the company navigate around them. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice keeps whispering, this isn't what you signed up for. But it is what you've become. You used to separate work from life. Now HR is your entire identity. Not because you love it, but because it never really leaves you. You're the friend everyone calls when they want to know if they're being screwed over by their boss. The family member people ask, can they fire me for that? You sit at dinner zoning out while mentally reviewing your next layoff script. You go to bed running through harassment policies. You wake up already tired. The burnout isn't a wave, it's a slow leak. You don't even notice how it's changed you at first. You just stop reacting. Someone yells at you in a termination meeting, you nod calmly. Someone tells you they're being harassed, you note the time and ask if they'd like to file it formally. Someone threatens to sue, you loop in legal and move on. It's not coldness, it's survival. Because if you internalize even a tenth of what you deal with each week, you'd break. You've watched coworkers escorted out by security, their faces red with shame. You've seen employees fired via Zoom in front of their kids. You've sat in meetings where someone's entire career is decided in 5 minutes by people who've never worked with them. You've made decisions you didn't agree with and handed them out with a straight face. And still, no one really sees you? You're in every major moment, onboarding, discipline, layoffs, investigations, but never really part of the team. People say good morning like they're scared of you. You walk into a room and the tone shifts. Jokes die, conversations end, smiles stiffen. You've become the embodiment of consequences, and you carry secrets. You know who's getting fired next week, who's under investigation, who got away with something they shouldn't have. You know about affairs, substance abuse, breakdowns, threats. You sit with these stories in silence because confidentiality is the rule, but the weight still builds. No one ever asks how you are. There's no support system for the supporter, no outlet for the person who hears everyone else's trauma. You can't vent. You can't cry in front of anyone. You can't say, I hate this too. Because you're supposed to be the calm one, the professional, the face of HR. And when something breaks, when someone snaps or a scandal hits the press, you're the one cleaning it up. You craft the statements, you run the trainings, you sit in the damage control meetings, and then you go home, take off your badge, and wonder when the numbness turned into resentment. You weren't built for this much detachment. But the more you feel, the less you function. And the less you function, the more dangerous it gets. For you. So you keep going. You keep smiling. You keep documenting, even when you're not sure who you're protecting anymore. You don't dream about promotions anymore. You dream about silence. About not being the person everyone blames or fears or unloads on. About walking into a room and not changing the temperature just by being there. You dream about mattering again, but not in the way HR makes you matter. Because in HR, you're the villain in everyone's story. To the company, you're not revenue generating. You're overhead, a necessary expense, a compliance box. To employees, you're a fake friend. Someone who smiles at them in onboarding and stabs them in the back during exits. Even when you try to help, it's never enough. You're too little, too late. You know what they whisper. She's with management. He's only pretending to care. Don't trust HR. And the part that hurts the most is they're not wrong. You started this job to be the person people could trust. You stayed because you believed you could change the system from the inside. But the system doesn't bend. It just wears you down until you sound like it, move like it, think like it. And when you finally break, when you quietly leave or burn out or stop caring, they'll replace you with someone fresh, someone wide-eyed, someone who still believes, just like you did. They'll read the handbooks, shadow the processes, take notes during sensitivity training, and they'll think, I'll do this better. Until one day, they're sitting in a glass-walled room, explaining to an employee why nothing is going to happen. You didn't mean to become this version of yourself. But HR doesn't reward truth tellers. It rewards the ones who can say nothing with a smile. So you learned the art of polite deflection, the legal safe apology, the pivot to policy. You became efficient, professional, Teflon, but you also became lonely because there's no real place for you. Not with the employees. Not with the executives. Not even with your own team, because they're all just as guarded, just as tired, just as wary of slipping up. You were supposed to be the bridge, but bridges get walked on. And as you clean out your inbox one last time, deleting files that documented people's worst days, you don't feel proud. You feel empty. You tried to do good inside a structure designed to absorb pain and produce nothing but compliance. You tried to be human in a machine that only wanted output. And now that you're out, you look back and wonder if anyone ever truly saw you. Or if you were just the walking, talking face of per our policy. That's why it sucks to be in HR.